If we thus accept the proposition that Africa and the Mideast are to be removed from the pool of nations or provinces from which the remaining original members of Antichrist's empire may be identified, we are left with a probable roster for the seven as follows. Britain, including or representing all of the British Isles. France, including or representing the Benelux nations. Germany, including or representing the rest of Central Europe. Greece, including or representing the Balkans, Eastern Europe, and Russia. Spain, including or representing the Iberian Peninsula. Italy. Israel. As in the case of the three subgroupings of the Southern Alliance, this list is meant to be taken as an approximation of the actual coalitions which will manifest themselves at that future time. Scripture, however, does clearly indicate a group of 7 kings and their respective kingdoms, which will dominate the geography of historical and revived Rome, and in its depiction of the events of the tribulation's first half and later, in Daniel chapter 11 in particular, there is absolutely no indication given of any neutral parties. Indeed, when we move into the Great Tribulation, we find the entire world under the sway of Antichrist to one degree or another. Therefore, while it is very probable, according to present geopolitical realities, that the Kingdom of Greece would be dominated by Russia and that its king would most likely originate in that country, it is still the case that those present and near-term future realities must tie into the historical arrangement of the Roman Empire and its provinces to some significant degree. So whatever the actual alignment of the nations of Europe on that near-future day, the essential point is that there will be 7 power blocks, led by 7 extraordinary rulers, which will be constituted from and comprise in near or complete totality present-day Europe, or more precisely put 6, because Israel, a non-European state, as it is almost unnecessary to point out, will be one of those 7. In John's day, Palestine was of course a Roman protectorate, and in both Daniel and Revelation, the 2 main sources of scriptural information about these events, Israel plays a central role. Furthermore, the positing of Israel as the northern kingdom's wedge against the Southern Alliance, and as an irritant to that alliance, has much to recommend it both in terms of scriptural interpretation and present realities on the ground. Indeed, at time of writing, by projecting the present course of events, it is not difficult to envision a situation in the near future where the West and the Muslim world find themselves embroiled in a fatal duel, with Israel at the center of the conflict. To review and at the same time cast our glance forward all the way to the end of his reign, we can summarize the progression of Antichrist's career as follows. Babylon seized. Revived Rome seized the 7 kingdoms. The Southern Alliance conquered the 3 kingdoms in 2 campaigns. The world subdued, brought under Antichrist's influence to a greater or lesser degree. Armageddon, the world's armed forces collected in Israel to oppose Christ's return. The seizure of revived Rome. For such a significant event, it may seem surprising that apart from Daniel 11:24, Scripture seems to have very little to say about Antichrist's parlaying of his seizure of Babylon into control over the 7 nations of the revived Roman Empire. Revelation, for example, in its mention of the 10 horns and 7 heads in association with the beast and Babylon, in chapter 17, effectively portrays these events as already accomplished after the fact. The combination of this general lack of scriptural elaboration, the incredibly short time frame within which these events must take place, that is, Antichrist is ready to launch his first campaign against the South within 18 months of the tribulation's inception, as we shall see, and the details which are provided in Daniel 11:24 all lead to the same conclusion: Antichrist's seizure of the 7 kingdoms will be an extraordinarily rapid and amazingly easy affair. In fact, it will hardly be a seizure at all. For the 7 kings of revived Rome will be Antichrist's allies from the very start. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom. But they will receive authority as kings for 1 hour, that is, time period, specifically the tribulation, along with the beast. These will have one purpose, and are going to give their power and their authority to the beast. Revelation 17:12 and 13. This passage clearly demonstrates the close connection of the beast both to the wider group of 10 mentioned here and to the more elite group of 7 included within the 10. In these verses we are told that all 10 kings will hand over to Antichrist the power and authority they possess over their respective nations. This is critical for our understanding of the revived empire and of Antichrist's seizure of control over it, for what it suggests is that the beast's efforts to gain control of revived Rome, far from being hindered by the rulers of her most important nations, will instead be aided by them, and significantly so. They are all said to receive authority as kings for 1 hour, that is, the tribulation, along with the beast. Scripture thus ties their accession to power directly to that of Antichrist, and in the phrase, receive authority, indicates that, like Antichrist, rather than being independent agents, they are operating under the aegis of a larger scheme, that is, Satan's plan for world conquest. This impression is strengthened by the fact that they are all said to have the same purpose and Greek nome, and it is precisely this common purpose which motivates them to hand over their power and authority to the beast. Finally, the fact that they are going to hand their power and authority over to Antichrist entails an unheard-of degree of coordination, cooperation, and subordination of personal and national interest, certainly beyond anything paralleled in world history to this point. This detail strongly suggests that these 10 kings are either also Nephilim, half-angelic creatures not recorded in the Bible since Genesis chapter 6, or at least close and ardent followers of the devil, whose purpose it will be from the very beginning of their political careers to aid and abet Antichrist's ascension to rule over revived Rome. In that it is said of the 10 kings that they will receive authority as kings, along with the beast, we have in this statement the further implication that their rise to power in their individual countries will bear many similarities to the rise of Antichrist in Babylon, making it clear that they are indeed part of the devil's plan from the start. Compare their later unity of feeling and cooperation in regard to Babylon, Revelation 17:16. By any interpretation, the thrust of all the head-horn passages covered here and in the previous section is, especially when taken together, to tie Antichrist, his kingdom, and his subordinate rulers very closely together. Far from being accidental, therefore, the cooperation of the 10 kingdoms themselves in Antichrist's seizure of power over them as revived Rome is also an integral part of the satanic grand design for gaining world power. It is therefore in this sense that we should understand the details to be given in the critical verse, which alone describes Antichrist's seizure of revived Rome from his base of power, Babylon. And through the same seductive methods, he will enter the strongest provinces, that is the 7 nations of the empire, that is revived Rome, and will do what neither his fathers nor their fathers have done. He will distribute plunder, spoils and riches to his followers, and will afterwards plot against the remaining powers, that is, the 3 sub-coalitions of the Southern Alliance, but will wait for an opportune time. Daniel 11:24.